I first met Burnell Saxton in high school. He was the star of the school, and I was just one of the many girls who secretly admired him. In college, we ended up at the same university. I heard he changed girlfriends like changing clothes. Known in the circle as a notorious playboy, by a twist of fate, he became my boyfriend after a joke. People teased and placed bets, the good girl. Hey, let's see how long Bernal Saxton will keep her around this time. But late at night, I found myself crying while calling Bernal Saxton. He wrapped his arms around my waist, asking, "Feel free to hit me. It's all my fault. Don't ignore me." In the VIP section of Imperial View Bar, I sat in a corner by the table, under everyone's gaze. The bottle landed on me. A guy, looking at his card, shouted excitedly, "Oh, I'm the little devil." This was my first time at such an event, and I kept mentally repeating, "Don't embarrass yourself. Don't embarrass yourself." I was so nervous that my fingers unconsciously tightened around the hem of my shirt. It's our very own Faith Palmer. I heard she's never dated before. How about this? Let's say it's card number 5. The punishment for this game is to date the person with card number 5 for a month, regardless of gender. The game escalated, making the crowd in the box erupt in excitement. The president who brought me there tugged at me, trying to rescue me from the situation. All eyes turned to me as the guy smirked and looked my way. "Faith Palmer, can you handle this?" I fell silent for a moment, then softly replied, "I can handle it." Everyone cheered even louder. "Who is it? Who has card number 5? Who picked 5? "I have number 5. A lazy male voice rang out. I looked up abruptly, and locked eyes with his deep, dark gaze. The room fell silent, so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. The person was Bernal Saxton, and no one dared to joke around anymore. He was the heir to the Saxton family empire, notorious in the circle as a playboy, with a good family background, good looks, and top grades in his major. Girls flocked to him one after another, yet he never pursued girls like me. Someone once asked him why. He casually bit on a cigarette and replied, "Not interested." But when I thought about it, it made sense. Girls like me were timid and dull. No matter how I looked at it, I felt we belonged to different worlds. Bernal Saxton's dark hair fell casually over his forehead, his expression indifferent. He was looking at me, but seemed to be looking through me. The guy holding the little devil card swallowed hard and tentatively said, "Okay, Bernal Saxton, since we didn't know card number 5 was you, how about we change the punishment?" Bernal Saxton glanced at me, a hint of a smile appearing at the corner of his lips. His tone casual, "I can handle it too." I was momentarily stunned, warmth creeping up from my neck to my cheeks. My throat felt dry, and my heart raced as if it were about to leap out. The crowd went silent for a moment, then erupted with, "What, Bernal Saxton, are you serious?" Bernal Saxton kicked the guy who was making the most noise beside him. "Why are you making such a fuss?" The guy held his kicked spot, and didn't dare to speak up. Bernal Saxton lowered his gaze to me, and noticed I was staring at him, eyes wide and unblinking, before subtly looking away. At that moment, all I could hear was my heartbeat. I had known Bernal Saxton since high school. No, I should say I knew him, but he didn't know me. I wasn't from Jing City. Getting into Jing City one high school took a lot of effort. My parents supported me from a small county to Jing City one high school with a small bun stall. They said, "Our stall is small. We can set it up anywhere. Faith Palmer, just go ahead and take the exam. Mom and Dad will be with you." On the day I received the admission letter, my parents' faces, slightly aged, were filled with smiles as they put down their work to pack their bags. They had lived in a small place for half their lives, and now, for my sake, they were going to struggle in a new city. I could see their anxiety, so I didn't dare to relax even for a second. My crush on Bernal Saxton was truly accidental. On the day of new student orientation, there weren't enough desks in the classroom, so I went to help move them. There were quite a few students there, and I chose the desk in the far corner. But while moving it, I accidentally bumped into a stack of desks behind me. Just before they fell, a hand appeared in my line of sight and caught them. The hand was beautiful, long and clean, with distinct knuckles. I couldn't help but look at it a few more times. "Thank you." The boy was tall, simply dressed in a white t-shirt, with a rugged face that held a hint of mischief. and his hair was neat and tidy. He casually pushed the desk back into place, his voice lazy. No problem. I didn't expect our classrooms to be on the same floor. I stared at his back, slightly dazed, as I watched him enter Class 1. Jing City No. 1 high school was divided by grades, and I was placed in Class 2. He was in Class 1, the best class in Jing City No. 1 high school. That was my first encounter with him. I just thought he was somewhat handsome. I learned his name at the opening ceremony. He spoke on stage as the representative of new students. In such a formal setting, he didn't even bring a script. Hello everyone, I'm Burnell Saxton, the new student representative. All eyes were on him. He raised an eyebrow, his tone casual. There's nothing to say. First place is all that matters. For some reason, his school uniform, neatly worn, gave off a sense of rebellious charm. He was Bernal Saxton, full of himself, but it seemed he was a bit famous. The applause from the audience surged wave after wave. Damn, it's still me, Burnell Saxton, as usual, handsome. Yay, I'm in the same school as Burnell Saxton. He didn't go to the prestigious high school next door. Damn, Burnell Saxton is so cool. Get off the stage and let me have a turn. My deskmate looked at my indifferent expression, and nudged me with her elbow. Faith Palmer, why are you so calm? Don't you think Burnell Saxton is handsome? Hearing this, my gaze fell on the handsome boy. I replied stubbornly, he's okay, a bit full of himself. My deskmate gasped in surprise. Faith Palmer, you have such high standards. But after the first monthly exam, I fell silent. Looking at the leaderboard, I was stunned for a moment when I saw Burnell Saxton's name at the top. Damn, he wasn't just putting on airs. He truly had the talent. Then glancing at my own name in 30th place, I returned to my seat, and quietly wrote down his name, making him my goal. But the disparity created by the different educational environments I grew up in couldn't be easily overcome just by my efforts. I became a perennial second place. Throughout high school, I thought my life would revolve only around studying, but the number of times I found myself thinking about Bernal Saxton increased. I didn't even realize when I started developing feelings for him. He was the star of the school, while I was just one of the many girls who secretly admired him. I had social anxiety, didn't like talking, and even when I called someone, I would rehearse what to say in my head first. For someone like me, even if I liked him, I didn't dare to tell anyone. But in college, it was the right age to date. Both Bernal Saxton and I were admitted to Jing City, a university, the best university in the country. With the right timing and place, I clearly knew what I wanted, and if there was an opportunity, I would seize it decisively. However, Bernal Saxton and I were not in the same major. Because of his status as the heir of the Saxton family, rumors about him had never ceased. I learned about all the girls rumored to be his girlfriends. Sexy, bold, wild. None of them were anything like me. Just when I thought it was impossible for someone like me to meet the right conditions, after the final exams of the second semester in my sophomore year, the president took me to a social gathering. I was still a bit dazed until the party ended when Bernal Saxton casually tossed a card to a guy. It's on me. The guy caught it, his eyes sparkling. Bernal Saxton, so generous. Bernal Saxton ignored him and stood up, naturally taking my bag off my back. I'll give you a ride. My eyes widened instantly, and I subconsciously wanted to refuse. No, it's fine. I'm going back with the president. Bernal Saxton raised an eyebrow, his gaze casually sweeping over the president. The president quickly raised his hand and signaled with his eyes, I can go back by myself. Bernal Saxton nodded in satisfaction, grabbing my wrist and leading me out. His voice cheerful, he said he could go back alone. Several girls in the box looked at me, with a hint of jealousy. Today's gathering was undoubtedly a chance for many of them to come because of Bernal Saxton. But since Bernal Saxton was hard to approach, they didn't dare to strike up a conversation. And in the end, it turned into this situation because of a game. I didn't know if it was my imagination, but as Bernal Saxton's gaze fell on my wrist he was holding, a faint smile seemed to appear on his lips. Was he in a good mood? Once I got into the passenger seat, he leaned over to fasten my seatbelt. As his fingers brushed against mine, I felt like I'd been burned and quickly tried to do it myself. I can do it, Burnell Saxton didn't pull back his hand but leaned in closer, his scent enveloping all my senses. Are you scared of me? With a click, the seatbelt was fastened. Burnell Saxton raised his hand, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. Before I could react, I felt a warm, moist sensation on my earlobe. He was sucking on my earlobe. A tingling sensation crept up my spine to my neck. In the quiet car, all my senses were heightened, and I was so nervous that my palms almost broke out into a sweat. Bernal Saxton gently nibbled on my earlobe, and I couldn't help but shiver. Faith Palmer, there's no turning back now. I was surprised for a moment. He actually knew my name. I smiled slightly. With the right timing, place, and people, I raised my hand to push him away, looking directly into his eyes. Okay, I know. 1 month. Bernal Saxton paused for a moment, his eyes dimming slightly before quickly returning to normal. He straightened up, started the sports car, and spoke with a hint of nonchalance. Just know it, during the summer break, I didn't go home but instead applied to stay at school to participate in a research group. Every day at 9, I went to the lab, sitting in front of the computer waiting for data and preparing solutions. The news about my relationship with Bernal Saxton spread wildly through the school's group chat the next day. *** Faith Palmer. Who is that? I've never heard of her. *** I know her. She's the top student in our chemical engineering program. I saw her in the lab before. She seems a bit socially awkward and doesn't talk much, but she's quite pretty. *** Pretty. Bernal Saxton ended up with the good girl. That doesn't seem right. He doesn't look like the type who would like someone like her. *** Come on, you're overthinking it. I was there. They didn't even know each other. It was just a game, like truth or dare, and they drew each other's names. It only lasted a month. *** A month. Bernal Saxton has never had a relationship that lasted more than a month. *** Oh my. Faith Palmer must be something special. I heard Bernal Saxton is quite good in bed. Can I play that game too? If I dated someone with that face, I'd slap myself twice if we had a fight. My phone kept buzzing with notifications. My roommates, who were already on their way home for the summer break, were going wild in the dorm group chat. ***, Whoa, Faith Palmer, you're dating Bernal Saxton. Amazing, you're my idol. ***, What's so amazing about it? Bernal Saxton is just a playboy. There's no way our Faith Palmer could handle him. Babe, it's just a game. Don't get too attached. ***, Oh man. Why is everyone in the school group chat talking about Faith Palmer and Bernal Saxton? Thank goodness it's vacation. Otherwise, our dorm would be overrun. ***, Faith Palmer. Don't pay attention to the group chat. Just focus on your work. And don't mind those people. They're just bored. But if something's bothering you, don't hold it in. Remember to tell us. We'll fly back to school to be with you. I'm soft-spoken and rarely argue with others, so they worry I won't say anything if I have a problem. Seeing my roommate's concern filled my heart with warmth. I typed on my phone, ***, okay. After sending it, I thought it sounded too stiff, so I retracted it and sent, ***, ***. My gaze landed on the newly pinned message, ***, Bernal Saxton, ***, and my lips involuntarily curved up. This was the Weshit contact Bernal Saxton added when he walked me back to the dorm yesterday. At the bottom of the dorm building, Bernal Saxton took out his phone and casually said, "Add me on Weshit." I paused for a moment, realizing what he meant, and quickly took out my phone. "Oh, okay." Seeing my expression made Bernal Saxton chuckle. "I'll scan you." "Okay." I opened the QR code. The notification sound chimed. I had added him. I said goodbye and hurried upstairs. No one knew my hand was shaking when I accepted the request, and my heart was fluttering with excitement. During the summer break of my sophomore year, I finally added the person I had a crush on in high school as a friend. The school group chat was buzzing every day with discussions about whether Bernal Saxton and I had broken up. Everyone was skeptical about our relationship, but Bernal Saxton didn't go home for the summer. Instead, he drove me to the lab every day. There weren't many students staying on campus for the summer, and on our floor, I was the only one left. I was timid. After 10 p.m., I didn't even dare to go out to get takeout. My mind was filled with all sorts of horror scenarios. Finally, On the 5th day of our relationship, Burnell Saxton casually asked, "Are you scared of living alone?" I thought about it seriously and nodded. "A bit." Burnell Saxton looked at me and smiled lightly. "Then come stay with me." His tone was so casual, but it made my heart skip a beat. Wasn't it said that Bernal Saxton never cohabited in a relationship and never lasted more than 2 weeks? Was this moving in together? Wasn't that too fast? With no experience in dating, my mind couldn't help but wonder, and my face gradually flushed. Dazed, I moved into Bernal Saxton's apartment. I was timid and a bit socially awkward, so I felt particularly uneasy around him. But despite the rumors that Bernal Saxton was unapproachable, he seemed to have an unusual amount of patience for me. He would often sigh lightly and squeeze my hand. "Faith Palmer, can you stop being so good? Demand a little more from me. I'm your boyfriend." He loved holding my hand, wherever we went. Even when we attended gatherings with friends, he wouldn't let go. Bernal Saxton's friends were surprised. They had never seen him cling to anyone like this. They said maybe it was because Bernal Saxton had never dated someone like me before, so now he was all in. Seeing my meek personality, they secretly bet, "Look at this good girl. Let's see how long it takes before Bernal Saxton gets bored." But every time I got mad and stopped talking to him, he would pull me close at night, wrapping his arms around my waist. Bernal Saxton's kisses were intense and passionate, always leaving me breathless. To prevent me from getting hurt, he would place a pillow between my head and the wall, gradually tightening his hold on my arms. I would hit him while crying. He wouldn't get angry, whispering, "Hit me all you want. It's all my fault. Just don't ignore me." We did everything a couple should, except for the last step. Every time I thought we could, Bernal Saxton would let go of me, go to the bathroom for a cold shower, and take care of himself. Hearing the sounds from the bathroom made my face flush. It was as if he knew I was embarrassed and was deliberately teasing me. Every time he was about to finish, he would call my name from behind the door, mixed with desire, over and over. When Bernal Saxton emerged from the bathroom, my face was as red as a monkey's butt. He pinched my face, feeling good. "I can always serve my baby again." I covered my head with the blanket. "Thanks, but no need. Don't suffocate yourself." Bernal Saxton chuckled and pulled my head out. Then, as if nothing had happened, he wrapped his arms around me to sleep. Was Bernal Saxton lacking in this area? No. After getting so close to him, I clearly knew he was quite skilled. At first, I didn't think much of it, but after several encounters, I couldn't help but wonder why he could do certain things with others in relationships but not with me. Since high school, I had the impression that Bernal Saxton was effortless in everything he did. He was flamboyant and proud, yet not annoying. Being with someone like him, I never stopped doubting myself. I found it hard to control because of my nature. As the month drew closer, both Bernal Saxton and I tacitly avoided mentioning it. But a game is a game. It must end someday. At one gathering, Bernal Saxton had something to attend to, so he told me to go ahead. The guy who picked me up was from the last time we played games at the bar, and it seemed Bernal Saxton wasn't very familiar with them. However, since they were all wealthy kids from Jing City, Bernal Saxton would occasionally hang out with them. Everyone treated me with respect, calling me sister-in-law. But when I returned from the restroom, I heard mocking voices from the private room. Who would have thought that after all this time, Bernal Saxton still isn't bored? This good girl must be something else. Who knows? Maybe she looks good but is actually wild underneath. Now that a month has passed, how can she have the face to still cling on without breaking up? Bernal Saxton must be doing charity work. Otherwise, why hasn't he brought up a breakup? Why are you being so bitter? Are you jealous? Jealous of what? Isn't she just a girl selling buns? Her family sells buns. No wonder she hasn't mentioned breaking up after a month. If I were in her place, and finally caught a rich second generation like Bernal Saxton, I'd hold on tight. Ha ha ha, you really know how to describe things. Bang! I pushed the door open, and everyone fell silent. Ha! I scoffed lightly. They weren't afraid of me because of who I was but because of Bernal Saxton. It was evident to everyone that he wasn't bored with me yet. In fact, he was still quite interested. So even if they looked down on me, they didn't want to offend me directly. I didn't say anything more. I just calmly sat down, hating myself for not learning more insults online. My palms were so tense that they left marks. Seeing the situation was going south, someone tried to smooth things over, saying, "Sister-in-law, don't mind it, Evrion's just joking around. Don't take it to heart." I looked at him and smiled faintly. "No need to call me sister-in-law. You didn't say anything wrong. The fact is what it is. However, I'm very clear about my identity. I know this is just a game, so you don't need to remind me." A sudden silence fell over the room, and someone cautiously glanced towards the door. Burnell Saxton. I turned around, and Burnell Saxton's tall figure appeared at the door, his thin lips pressed into a straight line. It seemed he had just heard what I said. He ignored the person calling him, and walked straight towards me, his dark eyes fixed on me. There was a slight chill at the corners of his eyes. I knew he was angry. "Is that how you think of me?" Before he finished, I pulled on his collar and covered his mouth. I rarely took the initiative like this. Bernal Saxton was stunned for a moment before he turned the tables. He held my face, allowing me to grasp his collar. After enough kissing, Bernal Saxton finally released me, and buried his face in my neck. No one dared to speak. They had never seen Bernal Saxton like this before, and those who had just spoken ill of me now looked a little afraid. Whoever they offended, they certainly couldn't afford to offend Bernal Saxton. I stroked Bernal Saxton's hair, and I could feel his Adam's apple rolling slowly, sending a tickling sensation down my collarbone. He seemed a bit aggrieved. "Faith Palmer, how could you think of me like that?" I whispered an apology. "I'm sorry." Bernal Saxton's voice was low. "It's okay." The crowd in the private room clearly breathed a sigh of relief, thankful that Bernal Saxton seemed to have been comforted. But the next moment, I gently pushed him away. Evrion's eyes widened, their hearts racing. I heard myself say, word by word, "Bernal Saxton, let's break up." "Everyone." Bernal Saxton froze, and it took him a long time to come to his senses. He reached out to take my hand. "Why? Did they say something to you?" "I can explain." The air around us seemed to freeze. I looked into Bernal Saxton's eyes and calmly replied, "There's no reason. It's just that a month is up. This is just a game." Bernal Saxton moved his lips, giving a self-deprecating smile, and something in his eyes seemed about to shatter. He looked down at me, a light laugh escaping his lips. "All right, let's break up then." "Thank you." I grabbed my bag and walked away without looking back. As I left, Bernal Saxton didn't show any signs of distress. However, after I walked away, he remained silent for a long time, and then smashed something in the booth. The boy who had just mocked me was kicked to the ground by him, his voice laced with anger. "What do you think you are? What did you say in front of her?" That day, I heard Bernal Saxton severed ties with that group of rich kids. That night, I moved back to my dorm. As I left a bank card on the table. Bernal Saxton had given me many things. Anything he liked, he wanted to buy for me, but those things were too valuable. I converted them into money and stored them in the bank card. My family sells steamed buns, but the daily supply is actually quite large. We're not as poor as they imagine. Now, we have several storefronts in the bustling areas of Jing City. I saw Bernal Saxton again 3 days later, outside my dorm. He had his head slightly lowered, wisps of hair falling over his strong brow. "Bernal Saxton." I called out to him, wondering why he was here. How could someone so proud come back after being dumped? Bernal Saxton walked over and stopped about a meter away from me. His gaze landed on me unabashedly, and the intensity made it hard to ignore. "Is there something you need?" Bernal Saxton's voice trembled slightly. "I miss you a bit." That direct admission struck my heart hard. I looked into his eyes. "Bernal Saxton, we've broken up." His face paled a little. "I know." He glanced at me, cautiously stepping closer. "Can you give me a chance to explain what they told you that day?" I smiled at him. "No need. I know you're not that kind of person." Bernal Saxton's expression momentarily blanked, a hint of helplessness flashing in his eyes, his voice hoarse. "Then why did we break up?" My tone was calm to the point of indifference. "Because being in a relationship with you is exhausting for me." Bernal Saxton stiffened, struggling to speak. "Did I disturb you?" I shook my head. "No, but I hope our relationship can end here." "Okay." Bernal Saxton remained silent for a long time, and when he spoke again, His voice was very soft. I'm sorry, I didn't notice your feelings. I thought you were happy too. He handed me a card. I found the bank card you left on the table. I didn't take it, that's money, for things you bought for me. Those are too expensive. I can't accept them. Burnell Saxton tightened his grip on the card, as if something inside him shattered. But soon, he cracked a shallow smile. Returning to his usual nonchalance, he shoved the card into my hand. A hint of his former assertiveness. Take it. I've never taken back what I've given. After speaking, it seemed he wanted to reach out and pinch my cheek but hesitated, putting his hand back into his pocket. All right, get some rest and don't stay up late. For some reason, even though Bernal Saxton's back remained tall and slender, he looked so lonely. I touched my chest, where it itched intensely. Did I like Bernal Saxton? Of course, I liked him. How could I easily give up on someone I had secretly admired for so many years? But we were not from the same world. The gap was hard to ignore. I hated my personality, struggling to express what I wanted to say and always second-guessing my actions. Even if Bernal Saxton indulged me, I lacked confidence that he could truly like me for long. After all, our beginning was just a game. The differences in our family backgrounds and personalities, along with years of secret admiration, made it hard for me not to feel inferior. In this relationship, it seemed one person always had to be in a lower position. I didn't want to be anxious or doubt myself. I didn't know how long Bernal Saxton's feelings for me would last. Perhaps it hadn't even reached the point of liking. Maybe he was just curious because he had never been with someone like me. No one believed in our relationship. Dating me was tiring, and I didn't want to get lost in it. A person like me probably wouldn't find happiness in a lifetime. Perhaps stopping here was the best ending for me and Bernal Saxton, because at least our experiences together were beautiful, and he hadn't grown tired of me yet. A long time from now, we could still reminisce occasionally. A drop of moisture landed on my hand, and I gently wiped it away as I headed upstairs. Later, Bernal Saxton really didn't contact me again. He seemed to have returned to being the usual Bernal Saxton, though I heard he no longer went to bars. Everything returned to normal. I thought I would no longer have any intersection with him. There were still 2 weeks left of summer vacation. I finished my last tasks in the lab and decided to pack my bags and go home for a visit. My home was in Jing City, just a 3-hour drive from the school. I went straight to the store. At this time, my parents should have just finished the morning rush and were resting in the shop, but unexpectedly, before I reached the store, I heard a girl's sharp voice. What kind of terrible buns are you selling? They taste awful. The meat inside is rotten. My parents had wrapped buns for most of their lives, and they contained their hard work and integrity. I knew for sure that the meat inside could not be rotten. However, buns lay scattered on the ground as the girl, along with her friends, smashed many things in the store. The girls were dressed in designer brands, followed by a family driver. When they pinched their noses, saying it smelled awful, the mockery in their eyes was evident. They were deliberately looking for trouble. But my parents were honest people, who never started conflicts with others. Seeing that the girls looked very young, they seemed like spoiled children from wealthy families. I just hoped they would find it uninteresting and leave. My mother smiled gently at them. You must have mistaken the smell. Dear, the meat is all fresh, just delivered yesterday. The leading girl had a mocking look in her eyes. Oh, then I must have been mistaken. It's not the meat that smells bad, it's you all who stink. Another girl exaggeratedly pinched her nose. Yeah, how could someone smell so bad? Their clothes stink too. They're definitely country bumpkins from a small place. How disgusting. Hearing this, my dad didn't get angry, but just smiled innocently. After a busy morning, we might have a bit of a sweat smell. It was like hitting cotton. The leading girl's face turned sour, and she picked up a bowl on the table to throw. I stepped forward and grabbed her wrist. Enough. Right. The girl was stunned. After seeing my face, she coldly huffed and shook off my hand. Oh, you're back. Her blatant hostility made me frown slightly as I searched my memory for her face. Do I know her? Seeing my confused expression, the girl arrogantly put her hands on her hips and introduced herself. It turned out she was a student from a neighboring university, who had once obsessively pursued Bernal Saxton, but he didn't even glance her way. This made her very frustrated, and she didn't dare to provoke Bernal Saxton. Ever since I started dating Burnell Saxton, she had looked down on me, and even hired someone to investigate me. A few days ago, upon hearing I dumped Bernal Saxton, she was furious and vowed to teach me a lesson. Hearing that I was leaving school today, she brought her friends and the family driver directly to my parents' bun shop. When she found out I hadn't returned yet, she started making things difficult for my parents. What makes someone like you think you can dump Bernal Saxton? A god I wouldn't even dare dream of. Dumped by you? Why? What kind of potion did you give Bernal Saxton? I heard he wouldn't let anyone say anything bad about you. Whoever said it, he would get furious. What gives? Who do you think you are? The more I listened, the tighter my brows knitted. The world is vast and full of wonders. Neurotic. You call me neurotic? You're the real neurotic. Your whole family. Before she could finish her sentence, a whole pot of cold water was splashed in her face. My mother, who had just been patient and enduring, pulled me behind her and stood with her hands on her hips, full of righteous anger. Nowadays, it's like every dirty thing is drawn to our doorstep. Ugh, how unlucky. The girls were caught off guard by the splash of cold water and the spit, their expressions turning extremely ugly. They immediately shrieked and commanded the driver, who had been standing dumbfounded behind them, "What are you standing there for? They're peeing on me from above. Aren't you going to help? What good are you?" The driver, realizing what was happening, rushed forward to help. Even though he knew his young lady was being unreasonable, he was afraid of losing his job. The driver was tall and strong, while the girls were sharp-tongued. Our family of 3 had been honest for many years, and we couldn't compete with their insults or fights. With 3 red faces, we stubbornly pointed our fingers at them, refusing to back down. The girl crossed her arms. "Faith Palmer, kneel and apologize. We'll let you continue your business." Just as she was feeling triumphant, a luxury car pulled up in front of my family's shop. An elegant and sophisticated woman got out, her hair casually styled up, and the rhythmic sound of her high heels echoed on the ground. Just as she caught sight of the chaos in our shop, she lifted her skirt and dashed forward. A few bodyguards followed closely behind, and before they arrived, their voices reached us. "How dare you bully someone under my protection? I'll deal with you." Without needing any direction from the woman, the bodyguards moved in, one restraining the other. The girl's face turned blue and purple. "Do you know who my dad is? How dare you treat me like this?" "Who is he?" "Mason." The woman rolled her eyes. "PFFT. I don't know him. He's not even as famous as my dog." The girl was furious, her chest heaving. "Who do you think you are? Mind your own business." Without even looking at her, the woman replied, "Do you think you're worthy of knowing my name?" She waved her hand to the bodyguards. "Take her to the police station." "It's useless. I have connections at the police station." The woman seemed quite pleased. "What a coincidence. I have connections too." The girl wanted to say more, but the bodyguards covered their mouths and took them away. As soon as they left, a butler-like figure approached the woman. "Mom, we've found out that Mason is a notorious nouveau rich from the neighboring district. His family runs a factory. Here are the details about it." He respectfully handed over a folder containing the information. The woman glanced at it briefly before putting it down. "HMPH. I thought he was someone important. He runs a rundown factory and dares to bully people." The butler nodded. "Mom, how would you like to handle this? The place where their pathetic factory is located is still rented from someone else. Doesn't that girl think everything stinks? Go buy that land for me, and then demolish that shabby factory to build a public restroom." The butler hesitated. "Mom, isn't that a bit excessive? After all, she's just a kid, doesn't understand anything." The woman looked shocked. "Goodness, she's 20 years old. She's not a child. Not slapping her would be letting her off easy." The butler didn't dare say anything further, and hurriedly nodded. "I'll take care of it right away." Once the butler left, the woman tidied her hair, put on a smile, and familiarized herself with my mother. Taking her hand, "I noticed you hadn't delivered the buns today, so I guess something must have happened. Mia, I'm late. I'm sorry you've suffered." My mother expressed her gratitude. "You're not late at all, Mom. Your timing is perfect." "Mom, so she's the major client our family has relied on all along, the one who orders 100 buns every day without fail throughout the year." When we first arrived in Jingchen, It was thanks to her that our family could establish ourselves here. So she is the mom. Just as I was still in a daze watching them chat, the mom turned to me with excitement. She patted me affectionately, her eyes full of warmth. She kept complimenting me on my looks, but I still had messy hair from losing the earlier fight. The mom gazed at me, with starry eyes. Beautiful. Our Faith Palmer is so beautiful. Thank you, Auntie. Her compliments made me blush with embarrassment. While my mother packed the buns, the aunt held my hand and wouldn't let go. Once the buns were ready, she seemed a bit reluctant to leave. Having just dashed around, she suddenly winced. Oh, my foot hurts. My mother looked worried. What happened, Mom? The aunt rubbed her foot. I probably twisted it from running too fast earlier. Looks like I'll have to ask Faith Palmer to drive me home. I was taken aback. But don't you have a car? The aunt casually replied. My foot is twisted. I might get car sick. So it's better if Faith Palmer drives me. I looked at the luxury car parked outside the shop. Just as the driver met my gaze, he awkwardly avoided my eyes and silently drove away. My mother brought out a bicycle. How about this, Faith Palmer? You can ride this to take the mom home. Before I could agree, the aunt jumped onto the bike. I think that's a great idea. She wrapped her arms around my waist to guide me. Faith Palmer, just go up the hills. So, in 30-degree weather, we were both sweating profusely. Finally, we stopped in front of a villa that resembled a castle. The aunt wiped her sweat and hopped off the bike. We've arrived. Faith Palmer. I stood at the door, unable to believe it. Such a family actually liked eating our buns. Every single day without fail. The aunt warmly invited me inside to rest. There were many maids in her house, and each one seemed to genuinely like me, even though it was our first meeting. Before I could notice anything amiss, the aunt mysteriously led me into a room. It was Burnell Saxton's room, simple in tone and neat. Inside was a familiar scent. As I glanced at a family photo on the wall, it dawned on me, she was Bernal Saxton's mother. On the bedside table, there was a picture frame. My gaze landed on the photo inside. It was a girl in a school uniform, posing with a friend while flashing a peace sign at another camera. That was me at 18. I was momentarily stunned, looking at the aunt with questioning eyes. Auntie. She knew what I wanted to ask, patting my hand as she crawled under the bed and pulled out a locked box. When she opened it, I saw a pile of exam numbers. Noticing my confused expression, the aunt took my hand. Sweetie, don't you recognize this? Take a closer look. These are the exam numbers you pasted on your desk during every monthly exam in high school. My heart skipped a beat, as if something had struck me deeply. I murmured, these are my exam numbers. The aunt's voice was gentle. Faith Palmer, do you remember how in high school, during the monthly exams, Burnell Saxton always sat in front of you? He was first, and you were second. I remember. These are the exam numbers he would tear off your desk after each test. He was too shy to talk to you, but felt that those moments of being so close were precious. So he would take your exam numbers every time. My gaze lingered on those exam numbers, quietly lying in the box, each one preserved well. Looking closely, I noticed each exam number had a handwritten note on it. Asterisk asterisk, Faith Palmer sat behind me for the first exam. Asterisk asterisk, Faith Palmer sat behind me for the second exam. Asterisk asterisk, Faith Palmer sat behind me for the third exam. I carefully picked up one of the numbers. These little notes I had never paid attention to actually recorded my 3 years of high school, capturing every moment of taking exams behind Bernal Saxton. A lump formed in my throat. It turned out that in a world I had never seen, Bernal Saxton seemed to have a story about me that I had been unaware of. The aunt patted my head with an apologetic expression. I'm sorry, Faith Palmer. I brought you here without asking for your permission. I learned about your breakup and wanted you to see these things, not to make you feel moved and reconcile with Bernal Saxton. I just felt that given Bernal Saxton's personality, he might never tell you. But I witnessed this story and know how much he liked you, so I wanted to share it with you. Perhaps you could consider getting to know him a bit more. It's a shame to miss out like this, but love can't be forced. Just follow your heart. The aunt told me a lot, and I listened quietly, my heart being struck again and again. Faith Palmer, Bernal Saxton has liked you since he was 16, but hasn't he dated many girls? He's dated many girls, changed partners like changing clothes, a playboy. I nodded lightly. Yeah, that's what everyone says. The aunt looked regretful. It's all my fault and his dad's. These rumors are baseless. Just something we spread around to make him look less competent and lower the competition's guard. Her expression was as determined as if she were about to join the party. Faith Palmer. Believe me, before you, he had never even held a girl's hand. Worried that I might not believe her, the aunt seemed ready to explain further. Downstairs, a casual yet pleasant male voice called out, Anastasia Flynn. Where's my mom? She's in your room upstairs. She's with. Before Anastasia Flynn could finish, Burnell Saxton waved his hand. Okay, I got it. Bernal Saxton walked upstairs with his hands in his pockets. You rushed me back. It better be for something important. His footsteps grew closer, but his voice faded, finally stopping at the door. He looked a little thinner than the last time I saw him. His dark eyes widened in disbelief as they fell on me, filled with so many emotions. Faith Palmer. When he saw what I was holding with the aunt, his body instantly froze, panic flashing across his face. His voice quivered. Faith Palmer. Let me explain. In high school, he wanted to explain, but didn't know where to start, especially since what I held was undeniable proof. He carefully took my fingers. I liked you in high school. Collecting your exam numbers was my way of feeling connected to you. Please don't be scared. I'm not a creep. Don't be mad at me. And please don't dislike me too much. Okay. I gently curled my fingers around his, and Bernal Saxton looked up suddenly, hope gleaming in his eyes. Faith Palmer. You. I smiled slightly. Bernal Saxton. Do you want to hear my secret crush story? Bernal Saxton's eyelashes trembled slightly. I want to hear it. The aunt quietly exited the room, closing the door behind her. In Bernal Saxton's room, I slowly began to tell him the story about him that he never knew. By the time I finished, the sky had darkened. Dinner was already prepared on the table. As we stepped out, the aunt observed our expressions, pulled his dad aside, and started packing their things for the car. I looked at them in confusion. Uncle, Auntie, where are you going? Aren't you going to eat dinner? Without a second thought, my uncle chuckled. Not going to eat. We're going out for a bit to avoid interrupting your. Before he could finish, the aunt covered his mouth. Faith Palmer. Don't listen to him. We just suddenly wanted to go on a trip. I've given the butler and everyone else a holiday. You two can do whatever you want this week. No one will be home. Really, no one. Hearing the implication, my face flushed, but Bernal Saxton just chuckled softly, leaning against the door, watching them leave with satisfaction. That night, I learned what it meant to be kindling to a raging fire. As if to punish me, Bernal Saxton tested my limits again and again. Every time I thought of escaping, he would pull me back. Wasn't he supposed to be the pure-hearted boy? That was a lie. In the darkness, Bernal Saxton kissed away my tears, bit by bit. Still, some moisture lingered in the corners of my eyes. It wasn't mine. It belonged to Bernal Saxton. He held me tight, repeatedly saying he had regained what was lost. One afternoon in the future, I opened the picture frame that Bernal Saxton had left on the bedside table. On the back of the photo of me at 18, Bernal Saxton had written a sentence. It was a line from Neruda. I murmured aloud, in my barren land, you are the last rose. To Faith Palmer. The main text ends here. Epilogue. The Bernal Saxton chapter ***. On the day he became Faith Palmer's boyfriend, Bernal Saxton was so happy that he couldn't close his eyes all night. At 3 in the morning, the metal lighter glinted coldly in the darkness as Bernal Saxton stood on the balcony, feeling the chilly wind. The cigarette in his hand had burned down to the end without him realizing it. A sharp pain in his hand confirmed that this was not a dream. His gaze darkened, and he chuckled softly to himself. What a loser. Bernal Saxton tossed the entire pack of cigarettes into the trash. Faith Palmer was so good, she probably wouldn't like someone who smoked. Everyone said he was arrogant and unyielding, that there was nothing Bernal Saxton wouldn't dare to do. But in reality, he was the coward secretly in love but too afraid to say it. Bernal Saxton and Faith Palmer attended the same high school, but he didn't first meet her there. It was probably when he first arrived in Jingcheng. Faith Palmer and her parents were struggling with heavy luggage. Bernal Saxton had just finished playing basketball, and was followed by a group of friends. "Mom, hold on a second. I'll find the way. Don't rush." Her soft and gentle voice. Burnell Saxton couldn't help but look over. Faith Palmer had her hair in a bun, with some loose strands framing her delicate, fair neck as she bent over, focused on her phone's navigation. The sun was bright, and she raised her hand to wipe the fine sweat from her forehead, turning in circles following her phone. Suddenly, her lips curved up, and her eyes brightened as she confirmed the direction. "Mom, this way, just a little further, and we'll be there." For some reason, despite the distance between them, Bernal Saxton couldn't shake the thought, she must smell lovely. Unlike his friends, who had that dog-like odor, his heart raced as he brushed past her, catching the name, Jing Cheng No 1 High School, in the air. His gaze darkened. Jing Cheng No 1 High School. He had to go there. His friends behind him snickered. "What do we mean by following you to enroll in that elite school?" He saw Faith Palmer again in the storage warehouse, where the desks were kept. Bernal Saxton had his hands in his pockets, his expression indifferent. "Jing Cheng No 1 High School is really tough. I have to move the desks myself." Then, unexpectedly, Faith Palmer appeared in his line of sight. Bernal Saxton froze for a moment, realizing a desk above her was about to fall. Acting faster than his brain, he instinctively reached out to steady the desk, getting uncomfortably close to Faith Palmer, close enough to see her long, dark lashes, so beautiful that he wanted to touch them. Faith Palmer looked up at Bernal Saxton and said thank you. Bernal Saxton stared into her eyes, lost in thought, feeling his ears grow warm. He swallowed hard. "No problem." When he returned to the classroom, his steps were still light. Faith Palmer was actually in the class next door. In a moment of impulsiveness, he, who had always scorned speaking on stage, actively sought to represent the freshmen. This was Bernal Saxton, and of course, the school leaders were thrilled. But standing on the stage, microphone in hand, looking out at the sea of faces, his mind was consumed with one thought: stay calm. Faith Palmer is watching. Nervous, he tried to act cool, but ended up stumbling down from the stage in embarrassment. Faith Palmer always excelled in her studies, coming in second every time, so Bernal Saxton always aimed for first place, just so Faith Palmer could sit behind him during the monthly exams. Yet, despite being so close, he didn't dare say a word, not a single word in 3 years of high school. As long as he knew Faith Palmer was sitting behind him, Bernal Saxton felt happy. He had seen other boys confess their feelings to Faith Palmer, even when it was the class monitor. Faith Palmer showed no mercy. "Focus on your studies. I don't have time for a relationship. It's a waste of time." Her gaze towards that boy was extremely cold, a side of her Bernal Saxton had never witnessed before. He thought Faith Palmer would never like someone like him, outspoken, rebellious, with a bad reputation. So when someone asked him the same question, he glanced at that familiar figure in the corner. His expression darkened. Not interested. He was a proud person. Bernal Saxton was born with a gene that didn't allow him to bow down. But in the matter of secretly loving Faith Palmer, he was hesitant and humble, completely unlike himself. Perhaps the more he liked her, the less daring he felt to get close. Bernal Saxton had never imagined that unrequited love would be so tortuous. Giving up was too hard, and his feelings intensified in the dead of night, overwhelming him with desire. Only when cold water splashed over him could he calm down. He couldn't bear to imagine Faith Palmer's face in such contexts. She was so pure and clean. He couldn't bring himself to tarnish her. On the day of their high school graduation, Faith Palmer let her long-held bun down, taking pictures with her best friends, hand in hand, under the sunlight. She smiled with her eyes crinkled, her features radiant. Bernal Saxton could only stand in the corner, carefully capturing the moment with his phone. He still hadn't mustered the courage to say he liked her. The rhythm of his breathing, the beat of his heart. Bernal Saxton clearly knew that Faith Palmer was his second heartbeat. He wanted to act like a typical graduate and step forward to offer her well wishes, wishing her a bright future, wishing her success. But his eyes couldn't lie. He lacked the confidence to look into Faith Palmer's eyes without revealing his true feelings. He could only wait for the absolute chance, when everything would be ready, wait for that moment when their hearts resonated in perfect harmony. **** Little Easter egg 1, ***. Recently, Burnell Saxton's reputation had taken a hit. Everyone in his circle said he was a playboy, spreading rumors about his rapid change of partners and insatiable desires. Bernal Saxton was infuriated, feeling like a widow facing baseless slander. After some investigation, his eyes darkened further. Silently, he returned home, kicked open the door, and stormed to where his parents were elegantly dining, swatting away their breakfast. Those ridiculous rumors outside were all spread by you. I thought it was some scoundrel stirring up trouble, but I never guessed it would be from you too. How delightful. The perfectly arranged breakfast was overturned, and seeing Bernal Saxton so furious, his father felt a pang of guilt. We thought if you had a bad reputation, those companies constantly eyeing the Saxton family would let their guard down. Then you could lead the Saxton family to greater heights, and scare them off. His mother, noticing Bernal Saxton calming down, cautiously reminded him, "Son, those buns were bought at Faith Palmer's place." Only then did Bernal Saxton realize he had just thrown down the buns. Rubbing his temples, he groaned, "Why do you need knives and forks for buns? Can't you just eat them by hand?" His parents quickly apologized. "We're sorry, we just wanted to appear a bit more sophisticated." Bernal Saxton's frustration almost made him grind his teeth. He squatted down to pick up the mess. These were Faith Palmer's buns. She was so good, she probably helped make them. He couldn't waste them. Asterisk asterisk little Easter egg too. Asterisk asterisk. In a bar booth, everyone clamored to play games, and Bernal Saxton's participation excited the crowd. But no one knew that from the moment the cards were dealt and the bottle began to spin, Faith Palmer and Bernal Saxton were silently calculating the probabilities in their minds. They began at the same time, completely in sync. At that moment, the calculations of these two academic stars were sharper than ever. After a few rounds, Faith Palmer and Bernal Saxton inconspicuously switched places. Faith Palmer found the right spot, while Bernal Saxton got the cards he wanted. They had thought it would be hard to find common ground, but unexpectedly, the game escalated. Their gazes fell on each other. Someone began to ask Faith Palmer, "Faith Palmer, can you keep up?" Her voice was soft but clear, "I can keep up." Bernal Saxton glanced at the 5 card in his hand, lounging back, a careless smile tugging at his lips. "I'm card 5. I can keep up too."